So I think by this point people know that I play a lot of GTA Online, and I own a lot of cars. Now, I've considered doing this video a few times, talking about my favorite cars in this game, but, you know, the sheer number of cars that I own, it almost kind of becomes impossible to do a proper list, but I have kind of condensed it down to 15 cars. There were a lot of honorable mentions for this, enough so that I could theoretically do a second or even third list if I wanted to, but I'm gonna focus on this one at the moment. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, I have condensed this down to 15 cars. There could be more lists in the future because there's so many cars in this game that I just like the look of, but I've decided to focus on 15 at the moment. Whether this will be a good list to people, I don't really know. This is just my personal preference and even maybe a bit of recent buyer bias. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. Okay, so kicking off this list at number 15, I have went with the Vapid FMJ, a discontinued car that is, I believe, based on a modern-ish Ford GT. I mostly picked this car because I think the back end of this car is really good looking. The car is also decently fast, but I really love the back end of this car. The front end I'm not so sold on. I think the headlights are a bit weird because when you look at an actual, like from what I've heard, the front end of this car is based on a different car, but is still loosely similar to the Ford GT. But the headlights on the front just kind of mess with me, and I'm not really a big fan of it. But the back end is good enough to where I feel like this car deserved to be on the list. Okay, so up next at number 14 is the Pfister Comet Retro Custom, a Benny's retro conversion of the Comet. Now, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Porsches, but I make an exception for the Comet Retro Custom just because, mostly because of the fact that it's a Benny's car. There's this whole thing with Benny's cars where you can just do a metric ton of customizations on them, and this car is especially cool in that regard, so decided to include it for that purpose alone. But I mean, it's, you know, it's a decent driver. It's not terrible. Okay, and next at number 13 is the Invetero Coquette D5. I think that's how you pronounce that. Which is, I believe, based on a Corvette C6. Now, me personally, one of the main reasons I bought that car is because it kind of reminded me of the Coquette that's in GTA 4. This might be a recurring theme throughout this list, but I really like that particular version of the Coquette, and it still kind of disappoints me that they haven't ported it over, because I believe that version of the Corvette is a C5, not a C6, but for what it's worth, I'm willing to take the D5, but I'm still in the back of my mind hoping that they port the GTA 4 Coquette into GTA Online. Will they ever get around to it? Probably not, but one can hope. Okay, and at number 12, I have picked the Grotti Itali GTO. Now, I have mostly picked this car because of my kind of light history on racing in this game for a while, and I don't think this is necessarily true anymore. Maybe it is, but for a while, this thing was basically the king of races for the sports class, and that may be factoring my decision here on including it in this list, but also I just really like the way this car looks and sounds. Now, I will say when it's like driving on the road, sometimes if you pass over a bump, it can just cause a thing to go full flip, but it's not like a huge problem. When it's like on one of those like stunt races or something, or one of the flat races, it handles fine enough. So number 11, I decided to give this to the Benefactor Schlagen GT, mostly because of the engine sound. This was originally going to be like a top 10 list, and then I decided to bump it up to 15, specifically because of this car and the fact that I remembered this car existing. It handles decently. I think it might be a bit slow, but it's not like too bad. But the engine sound on this thing is incredible. I remember it came out during Arena War. I bought it, and it was basically my daily driver for a while. Okay, so getting into the top 10, I kind of really wrestled with what I wanted to put here, because there's kind of two cars that I thought really would have went good here. The first one was going to be the Coquette D10, but I've come to the conclusion that I think I like the original Coquette more. Yeah, I don't know, there's just something really interesting about the way that the original Coquette looks, and it's kind of a shame that they took it out of the store because, you know, $138,000 for that thing was kind of a steal, right? Like, it's not the fastest thing, and it doesn't exactly handle the best all the time. Like, it's obviously not going to be at the top of its class, but like for a $138,000 car, it was really good. And it just has this look about it that I feel like makes it extremely unique compared to like something like the D10, which is basically supposed to be the updated version of it, I guess. I don't know. I just think the original one is better looking, in my opinion. So at number 9, we have our first HSW car on the list, which is the Niobe. Now, I had considered putting the Krieger here, because I really do like the way that the Krieger looks, but I ended up going with the Niobe just because I think the Niobe is just more fun to drive. Not saying that the Krieger's bad, but like, it's just, I don't know, there's something about the HSW version of the Niobe that's just really fun to drive. I don't know if it's something about the speed and the handling or what, but I just really like the way this thing drives. It also sounds good and looks good, which is a definite bonus, but you know, it could have been either or with this or the Krieger showing up on the list, and I ended up going with this one. Moving on to number 8, we've got the Pegassi Tempesta. Now, I hold the belief that pretty much every Pegassi car looks vaguely the same as each other, but for whatever reason, the Tempesta just really stands out compared to the rest, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. Like, it handles decently, it's decently fast, and you know, it looks alright. And admittedly, I also thought about putting the Zentorno in this spot, but the only reason the Zentorno would win out is because the Zentorno has a bit of weird utility behind it, in that the Zentorno has a bulletproof back, which can come up in a handful of missions. That's pretty much it. Okay, so anything past this point is effectively all in kind of like a 7-way tie with each other, because I like all of these cars equally for slightly different reasons, probably, but so at number 7, I have decided to give this to the Elegy Retro Custom. So the Elegy Retro Custom is the Benny's retro conversion for the Elegy RH8, which is based on the Nissan GTR. The Elegy Retro Custom, by comparison, is based on a couple of different Nissan Skylines, which is the main reason why this has gone so high on the list. I really like the look of the Nissan Skyline, so this was one of the first Benny's cars. It might have even been the first Benny's car I remember buying, just because of the look. Now, you know, it's got decent handling, it's decently fast, the engine sound is alright. But the obvious thing is because it's a Benny's car, it has like near unlimited customization behind it. which is incredible. I just really like Benny's cars. This is going to be a thing that'll come up quite a bit. Okay, and number 6, I've decided to give this to the Ocelot XA-21. Now, I could have picked a lot of different Ocelot cars because, honestly, they're all really cool for different reasons, mostly the engine sound, but I decided to go with the XA-21. Like, I remember when I made that video about BattleEye, a lot of people were asking me what that car was because apparently they just never seen it before, and I had to originally state the name of the car and say, and like, you know, warn that it is discontinued. I don't have to do that anymore. They brought this car back, and I'm extremely happy because they brought this car back. So yeah, the main reason that the XA-21 is here is strictly because of looks and sound. Performance, it's not really the best car. Like, it handles alright, the speed is, I believe, below average for the sports class. But the main reason I like it is just because of the look. It's nice and, you know, round. The engine is incredible. There's a bunch of, like, other Ocelot cars that have incredible engines, but I feel like the defining feature of the XA-21 is definitely the engine. And also the fact that it has I believe the term is a retractable spoiler, in that if you go fast enough, the spoiler comes out, and if you slow down enough, it goes back in. Which is a cool feature. There's not many cars that I feel have that. So yeah, I feel confident in putting this at number 6 strictly because of the engine sound and the look. So breaking into the number 5, we have a car that I believe has a bit of a funny reputation behind it, assuming they never took the NPC out. There's a specific NPC in Import-Export that drives this car. If you've ever tried to sell like a solo car in like a solo lobby, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So at number 5, as was hinted, I'm talking about the Sultan RS. So this is a car that I believe first appeared in GTA 4. It's hidden in the map, and it's one of the best handling cars in GTA 4 and one of the fastest cars in GTA 4 as well. It's also kind of a death machine in GTA 4, because if you go fast enough around a corner and you hit a wall, you'll probably go through the windshield. So yeah. But in GTA 5, it is a Benny's conversion for the 12K Sultan. Now, I've already stated I really like Benny's cars. This one is, again, one of my favorite ones, and it's strictly because of the engine sounds, both when you're driving it and even when you're sitting in idle. This thing sounds incredible. And the look of it, it looks pretty much identical to its GTA 4 counterpart, which is really nice because I feel like out of all the cars in GTA 4, even though I feel like this one doesn't come up much in GTA 4 because, you know, it's kind of hidden, I feel like this car was pretty iconic in GTA 4 for its look. And I feel like the car in GTA 5 kind of, it really retains that kind of energy to it, even without the NPC around. It's just a very nice show car, and it's decently fast. I think the handling might be a bit weird, because if I remember right, this car is a bit heavy, which is kind of a weird thing, because heavy cars sometimes not really great on the street. However, I believe this car has a very funny thing where it's actually decent in like off-road scenarios. But yeah, it's just a fun car. It's a fun car. It looks great, and it's iconic to the series. So yeah, that's why it's here. So at number 4, we have our final Benny's conversion on the list, which is the Nero Custom. So this is the Benny's conversion for the original Nero, and it looks great, it handles well, and it sounds fine. It has a lot of decent customizations to it because, you know, it's a Benny's car. I think I've talked about this car a little bit in the Premium Deluxe repo thing, because you have to steal one of these, in one of the missions. I think it's like the last one. And I mentioned this car is extremely fun to drive when you have it like fully modified. It's like, it's insane how fucking fun this car is to drive. Like, it goes decently fast and it's extremely smooth when turning. Like, there's a decent amount of cars that can do that, but like, usually they're kind of like lacking in one department or the other. This car is extremely balanced in both. So it's a lot of fun to drive. I recommend this one a lot. So at number 3, we have another discontinued car. Much to my dismay, the Entity XF. So I know for a while this car was effectively the god of the supers class, and I mean obviously it's not anymore. There's things that have effectively power crept this thing out. I think even starting at like the Zentorno maybe. But I really like the way this car drives. Obviously because it's an older car, it really doesn't have that much customization. But it's still extremely fun to drive. It handles well, it's fast. It looks great. Like, I feel like Koenigsegg's can be kind of hit or miss, but I feel like the Entity XF is really good at nailing that aesthetic. Now, as I mentioned, this car is discontinued, and I really don't understand why, right? When they discontinued a bunch of cars, I kind of understood it because there were like a handful of cars that were effectively not being driven, sure. There was a bunch of cars you could steal off the street, sure. But the Entity XF is a really, really weird one to me, alongside the Cheetah, because if you've played any amount of single player and have completed the single player like campaign, you would know that the Entity XF and the Cheetah show up in a very specific mission, and they are extremely fun to drive. Now, that ended up influencing me into buying both of them. And I end up driving the Entity XF a bit more than the Cheetah, mostly because I don't really like the back of the Cheetah. I think the front of the Cheetah is really good. I don't really like the back end of it. But the Entity XF is just a really good looking car all around. And discontinuing them is really weird because I feel like they're two of the most iconic cars in the game, effectively. So I'm still not entirely sure why they did that. And I may have put it this high up just to rant about it, but no, I really do really like this car. It's definitely in my top favorites. Okay, and the number 2, I decided to give this to the Banshee GTS. Now, realistically, I could have put any Banshee here, because in my opinion, all the Banshees look really good and really iconic, mostly because they're based off of Dodge Vipers. But the Banshee GTS, obviously, I feel like this one had to kind of take it just because I feel like it has better, more interesting customization, and it has the HSW upgrade. So yeah, obviously this car is extremely fast. I don't know exactly how fast, but I feel like it has a really ridiculous top speed. I think the fastest I've gotten it to go is like 172 or something. Really the main thing where the Banshee GTS kind of fails at, in my opinion, and this is just kind of a thing for a lot of the Banshees in the game for me, it can't really turn well or brake well. In a lot of ways, the Banshee GTS is effectively a modernized version of the 811 in terms of speed and handling, which I'm not complaining about because that car is also extremely fun to drive. It's like really hard to handle, but it used to go extremely fast. I think they patched it though. So yeah, the Banshee GTS is just really fun to drive and it looks amazing. But again, I feel like I could have put any like Banshee here. I was originally thinking of the 900R. I ended up settling on this one just because I think this one's more fun to drive and I think it also just looks slightly better. Okay, and my number 1 favorite car in this game is probably going to disappoint a lot of people, potentially, because I don't think this car is exactly warmly received, but I really love this car. So for the number 1 spot, I decided to give it to the Dominator GT. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this is just because I've recently bought it and I fucking love this thing, but no, I recently bought this car because I thought the back end of it looked really good and I thought the front end of it, you know, it looks fine. It looks exactly as advertised, which is a Mustang GT, and as I said, I really love this thing. I was doing a lot of like test driving with this thing, having a lot of fun with it. It looks great. I know some people don't like it because it's not a hard top, it's a convertible only, which, you know, I don't really care about that. I think it looks fine. You can kind of work with it if you wanted to. I think I did a decent job of customizing it to work with the convertible aesthetic, but I just love the way this thing handles and the way that it looks. It's decently fast, it turns decently well. I was using this in a bunch of different missions just to kind of goof around with it, and I ended up really, really loving the way this thing handles. So it might end up dropping as I drive it more, but at the moment, this is probably my favorite car in the game. It looks exactly as it should, which is a Mustang GT, and honestly, I have to wonder if they release this as some way to try to apologize for the absolute monstrosity that is the Dominator GTX. Now, I personally don't like the way that the Dominator GTX looks, and I really don't like the way that the Dominator GTX handles. Because it uses those really awful advanced handling flags that make every car feel like shit to drive, but it's especially bad with the Dominator GTX because it also doesn't look particularly great. So in a way, I have to wonder if they release the Dominator GT as a form of light apology for how awful the Dominator GTX is. But yeah, so that's probably my favorite car at the moment. Okay, so that's going to do me for this list. Now, obviously, this mostly boils down to personal preference and is also highly subject to change because I had a lot of different candidates that I could have done for this list. I decided to try to work through it and just stick to 15 at the moment, but if I really want to, I could theoretically get more lists like this out because I have a lot of cars that I just enjoy driving. And, you know, I'm also open to suggestions on cars if anybody has any. I don't know. Like, there's so many cars in this game that I still haven't actually driven, and I'm kind of in a weird spot where it's like, do I really want to buy other cars that I may or may not enjoy because I bought a couple of cars recently where I drive them for a bit and I'm like, they're fine, and I ended up not driving them again. Or they have some really weird thing where they bring back like the old handling flags and it's just like, ugh. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna go before this turns into a super ramble. And if I decide to do more of these, I don't know. I don't think I'd be reusing any of the cars from this list though. I'd probably focus on other cars. But I'm gonna go for now. I'll consider what to do with this later, I guess. If anything. Goodbye.